Hi guys, this is Nadia from Imbali Crafts, and today I want to show you how to create this wire woven pendant with a drilled focal bead. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button because I upload new stuff on a regular basis. I quite often make kits and PDF tutorials for the videos I put up on here, and I'll pop a link in the description below. I also have all sorts of gemstones, square and half round wire, some beads, and all sorts of other goodies on my website. So take a gander over and see if there's anything you fancy. Last but not least, come and join us in our wire wrappers and metalsmiths group on Facebook. I'll also pop a link below. Right, let's get started. Right, so I've cut 4 sections of 28 centimeters. Not sure what that is in inches, but I usually put this in the description. So to straighten up your wire, I normally just grab a pliers and I just kind of give it a pull like that, and that straightens everything out roughly. All right, so we've got our wires here, and next we need to take a piece of weaving wire, and that'll be your 0.4, which is your 26 gauge, I believe, in American gauge. I'm going to cut this, and we're going to start by picking up the first one. I'm going to zoom in here so that you can see. So I'm going to take 2/3 of the weaving wire. I've taken 1.5 meters. I'm not really sure what that is in inches again. As I said, I'll put this in the description. And we're going to start by attaching this to the first base wire, just one wrap. And then we're going to slide in the second one just above it, like that. And we're going to do a full wrap around both wires. And then we come in between 1 and 2, bring in the third wire, and then we are going to go around wire 2 and 3. Open this up a bit. You can open up the ends like that to help you guide in the wire if you've got lots of wires. And then I'm going to come in between wire 2 and 3, make one full revolution around wire 3, one full revolution around wire 2, and then one full revolution around wire 1. And then we're going to repeat this. We go around wire 1 and 2, come in between wire 1 and 2, so this is to step it up, and then we do one full revolution around wire 2 and 3 before wrapping once around each wire on the way back, like that. And this gives you something that looks like that. I can zoom in here. Doesn't let me zoom. Right, so now you can zoom. I think it doesn't work just now. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to zoom in some more so that you can actually see the pattern. And this is what it looks like. So now we're going to continue with this until we've got about, I think I made about 16 revolutions. Now obviously if your bead is bigger or smaller, you're going to need to add or remove some of these weaves. So I've got enough to go around the bead and some extra, but you'll see just I'm going to continue with this for now. Okay, so I've created 17 or 18 sets of this weave, and now we're going to shape it to fit around our bead. So I've got a smoky quartz bead here. This is a 10 or 12 mil. I'm not too sure what size. I'll tell you later and put it in the description. And what we need to do is we need to shape this weave to fit around the bead. So we're going to use our thumb and we're just gently going to shape this bead. There should be a little bit too much space, so it doesn't fit snug around the bead because we're going to use some of this space to attach some wires, but it'll all make sense in a minute. So I'm just going to bring this up. I need to put this here, and I am going to bend this wire that we have here upwards so that this is going to hold the bead. So I'm trying to get it at a 90-degree angle. So I'm just bending it upwards like so. You can see obviously it needs a bit more space, I reckon, so I'm just going to shape this some more. It can be a little bit fiddly when you have all these wires like that. Now I'm going to take the bead, going to slide this on, and we've got plenty of space left at the top. So now we're going to do, zoom in here, so I'm going to bend these two wires up. We're going to line up this wire with the wire coming out of the bead, and we're going to continue the weave. And this will, I'm going to bend this around a bit more, this will then tie off the bead in place. So we've got leftover wire here. Remember, we left 1/3 of the wire earlier. So I'm just going to come across. You probably need to bring it up a little bit more to make it line up. And then I'm going to bring this across, and I'm going to do one loop around the wire that holds the bead, and I'm going around both of them, and then I repeat the pattern of a 2 by 2. So that's once around the top wire, once around the bottom wire, and then once around both of them. Sorry, that's a 1 by 1. Don't really know what these weaves actually called. So once around the top wire, once around the bottom wire, and then once around both, and so forth. So I'm just going to do this 4 or 5 times. I always tend to push this down, and this will just add in the bead at the moment. Okay, so I've added this in. So now we're going to use these 2 wires to create a little sort of detail going this way. So I'm going to start with the innermost wire, and I'm just going to create a swirl like that. And we're going to follow that up with the other wire like that. And this is just going to create a little detail at the bottom. And I want to do some more weaving now with this, so we're going to bring this around some more. In fact, I'm going to straighten this out first, lay these down. It's actually easier to weave on a straight than it is to weave around a curve. That's just me. Other people may have not less of a problem with it than I do. I'm going to flatten this out so that they lie next to each other. And we're going to do a 2 by 1. So we're going to go once around the top wire, once around the bottom wire, just like we did with the weave attaching or holding the bead in place, like that. And then we're just going to continue with this for about, I don't know, I would say maybe 18 weaves or so, until, or actually let's do 16 first, because I want to add in a little stone detail. So just carry on until you have done about 15 or 16 weaves. Okay, so I've done about 15 weaves. Obviously you need to adjust that to whatever design you have, how big your bead is. So what I'd like to do is maybe add in a little detail here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little circle as round as you possibly can, and that is for the bead to sit in. I'm just going to grab a pair of pliers, and I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller, and I'm going to use a 4mm bead. So the idea is to create a loop that is just big enough so that the stone won't fall through. So I'm going to place it into that little loop. You can see it kind of rests a little bit too big, so I'm going to make it a bit smaller, but you can see that the stone is resting, it's supposed to be resting on the wires, the little loop we've created. Pick it up and put it back in, wrong way around. There we go. So this is how it should look. And now we're going to use the wire that's lying on top of it to wedge it in place. Just going to remove that, and you can gently guide the wire itself over the, I'm going to zoom in so you can see. So all we're going to do is rotate. We're going to lift the wire up as we rotate and do it very slowly. The slower you go, the more control you have over the wire, and this kind of wedges it in place. And the wire is supposed to lay over the girdle or the outside of the stone. See, I didn't do it properly. So when you do it properly, it kind of wedges the stone in place. So I need to adjust the setting a little bit because it's a bit too big. So I'm going to bring in a pair of pliers and squeeze it down a bit and adjust it over the stone. You want to make sure that the stone is caged in by the wire. There you go. And that should hold it. So this is the setting at the moment, and we're going to carry on with the weave in a second. Right, so it's wedged in place. So now obviously you can tell if you pull it sideways that it's stepped up a bit. So we need to bring the wire back down to the same level as the other one. So what we're going to do is put a little step in the wire like that, and that brings it back on the same level as the other wire, and then that lets you continue with the weave. All right, so all we've done is put a little step in it, and now we're going to carry on with the same weave as before. You may need to bring it up a little bit by doing simple wraps around one wire, and then once it's lined up, we're going to do one wrap around both, and then again we're going to start with one wrap around each single wire. I'm going to try and line these up perfectly. There you go. So we're going to continue with the pattern that we did before. So that is one wrap around the top, one wrap around the bottom wire, and then one around. And we're just going to continue with that. I think another maybe 16 or so, but I will tell you when I finished mine. Okay, so I've done about 17 weaves after the stone. So as I said earlier, it depends for you how big your bead is, so you need to adjust that accordingly. Right, so we're going to do next is trim off some of these wires because we don't need them anymore. So we're just going to cut these off because we're going to wrap these wires around the bead wire, and it's easier when it's a little bit shorter. So we're going to do is twist like that so that we can get them through the frame, and then we're going to pull these across. We're going to wrap these around the top, and it doesn't need to be actually wrapped. This is enough to actually grab the wire. So we're going to trim this off, leave about 1 millimeter because we're going to clamp down on it like so. And next we're just going to twist these some more and then clamp down on them like that so they actually grab the wire. Still a little bit too long. Trim it off, and then we're going to push down on that wire to grab the stem, and then we're going to adjust it just now, and that's what it looks like so far. Okay, so now that everything's attached, we're going to create the bail. So I'm going to continue with these two wires here, and you might need to add in some more weaving wire if you're running out. So it's the same obviously weave as before, so it is once around both, and then once around each wire, and then once around both, and so forth. If you need to add in wire, you just grab a new piece. Okay, so I usually tend to add in when I have attached a wire around a single wire because it's got more grip. So when you bring in your second one, you kind of slide it into the middle, and then you do a single wrap, and then you just continue as before with one around both, one around one, and the other one around one, and we're just going to continue. And then later obviously you can trim this off. It's better the wire sticks out the top when you trim it off, because obviously it's less likely to scratch the skin. Obviously you cut it off as close to the weave as possible so that doesn't happen. So even if you cut it off on the other side, it's all right, but I just tend to leave it the side that doesn't face the skin. Right, so we're going to continue with the weave. Okay, so I've made about 40 sets of this weave, and now we're going to create the belt. First I'm going to trim off this wire here as flush as I can. I'm not going to need this. I'm always loath to trim off wires, that's why I keep saying it looks like an octopus, so going to keep this one, and we're going to be twisting this one around like so. We're going to make this follow the shape. We're actually going to need to add some more weaves, so we're going to bring this round. We're going to make it come in from behind, but we're a little bit short on weave, so I'm probably going to be adding in about 10 or so more. Okay, so I've extended it by about 12. So what I want to do is bring this through here, so just do one wire from the inside, and we're going to kind of wrap it around the little loop here and hide it. So I want to make sure it follows the flow, so bring it through, and then as tightly as we can bring it round, and then we can just use this little wire here. I'm going to leave it here for now. I'm just going to create some more detail just now, and that's what it looks like so far. Okay, so all attached. So we're going to be using these leftover wires at the top, and you may need to add in some more weaving wire, or just take one of these that's left over. So I'm not sure if we've got enough here. So we're going to do is create a 2x2, so 2 around the bottom, 2 around both, 2 around the bottom, and so forth. So we're going to flip it over. So the bottom one for me now is going to be the outside one, because I want the open spaces to be on the inside. Now I'll explain just now. So I'm not sure if there's going to be enough wire, but I'll do it anyway. So that's 2. Actually I'm going to go with 3 to make it a little bit more open. So 3 around the bottom wire, 2 around the top wire, not neat, 2 around the top, 2 around the bottom, or 3 around the bottom, so I'm talking rubbish at the moment. Squinch it up, and then again 2 around the top, 2 around the bottom. We're just going to continue with this till roughly about here. We're going to bring this wire around and then attach it to that space left here. Okay, so I did about 12 of these 2x2s, and I did have to add in some more wire, so I'm just going to trim this off as flush as I can. There we go. Flatten this out as much as I can. So now we've got these, and the reason why I wanted to have these spaces in the weave is because when we're going to twist it round this, it's going to, I see, gone a little bit too short. Obviously depends how big you make the loop. I could make it a little bit more tight, but I want to have some space to add a jump ring in later on. In fact, I could actually put it through both of them, so then you can just squeeze it down a bit, and then we're going to wrap these wires around. Actually, in fact, I'm wondering if I should just maybe add a little bead here. I think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to create a little loop here like we did before. I'm going to use the second wire to attach it. So this is the loop for the stone. So as we did before, I'm going to add a stone, and then I'm going to show you how to tie off these ends. Right, so I kind of brought it around. I didn't really like the back too much. I think the swirl is a little bit pear-shaped. Anyway, so I squished it in a bit, and now there's a little bit of open wire. So to fill the gap, I'm going to use the leftover 0.4, and all I'm going to do is create some coiling until I fill the gap. There isn't much space to maneuver, so you kind of periodically push it up. I'm just going to keep doing this until you've got enough wire. Push this up so that you can then, so we're going to trim this off a little bit so we've got more space. Now where's my cutters? Just going to trim this off so that we have a little bit less wire to maneuver. And I'm going to now bring this round and grab it from the back. I'm going to wrap it around that stem where the bead is. It's obviously adjusted a little bit, and this wire we're just going to trim off, and I'm going to flatten it against the stone. Now, I didn't say this earlier, but obviously if you're not comfortable with adding in accent stones like that, you can just use beads instead, for people that are not comfortable yet with that sort of method. So make a little coil here or so, and here if you want to, and then maybe add in a drilled bead, and that way you don't have to fiddle with these unset stones, but you'll eventually get used to the process. Right, so obviously we're going to tidy this up. Right, so now we're going to trim this off. I fiddled a bit more with this wire at the back. I just didn't like the way it was sitting, so I kind of squashed it round a bit. So obviously if you're getting to this point, if you see this before I get to this part, you can maybe change the way you do the weave or so, or the wrap, if you don't like this either. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to fold this round. As I said earlier, it's always best to have the trimmed off wires at the front, so that stuff doesn't get hooked. And I'm going to kind of feed it around the stem like so to tighten it up. So now we've got these wires at the bottom left over, and I'm going to, and obviously all of these spaghetti wires. So I'm going to take whatever's left. If you had a little bit more length left over, you could kind of create detail with this wire, kind of like I'm doing now, but a little bit more. Trying to get this past the bead. So we're going to kind of add it around here just to add a little bit more detail, and tie it off. So I'm going to fit it around here. Unfortunately, the wire end for this is going to sit at the back, so this adds a little bit of detail. You can do the same with this, so kind of trim it off, but obviously you don't want this to stick out, so I think we're going to maybe bring this through also, and maybe add some more detail, and then this can maybe get tucked in somewhere here. Actually, I'm just going to wrap it around and then tie it off at the front. Maybe make another swirl or so with the leftover. Kind of always improvise with what you have and kind of think of little ideas. that you could do with wires. So anyway, you tidy that up a bit and you make it look nice. And that's what we've got so far. Right, so that's attached, and last but not least, most of you or some of you know that I like my beads, so I'm just adding some beads where I think they're nice, or they look nice. I think right around the bead like that, and then obviously tie that off, and that's that. So now we're just going to tidy up all the wire bits and pieces, and then obviously oxidize. I normally recommend to oxidize the piece before you actually add in the beads, because it's quite hard to tidy up the beads after. So if you haven't attached them already, just oxidize your piece if that's what you want to do, and then add the beads later. And that's the pendant done. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and if you want a kit for this tutorial, go to my website. I will pop a link in the comment section below. And if you want to post this piece, if you end up making it, come and visit us on our Facebook group for artists, which is called Wire Wrappers and Metalsmiths Worldwide, and post your piece there. We're a fun bunch. Come and join us. And yeah, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.